Welcome to the Living to 100 Club podcast.
Well, hello to everyone joining us today on our podcast. You're listening to one of our successful aging episodes this month on the Living to 100 Club program, and I'm your host, Joe Casciani. On each program, our conversations educate and inspire, helping you get the best out of all the years we're given, regardless of what obstacles come our way. You can learn more about our club at our website, and be sure to take a look at my new training and activities manual, Better, Longer, and Happier, a guide to aging with purpose and positivity. This is a series of 12 modules in a card deck format, developed for activities directors at senior living communities to learn more about psychologically healthy aging. All the modules are now on sale. Visit the website, livingto100.club/BLH for more information. Now on to today's program. On this Living to 100 Club podcast, we welcome a designer of a breakthrough product for anyone struggling to open child-proof pill bottles. Our guest is Rocky Batzel, CEO of SnapSlide, a packaging innovations company dedicated to making it easier to access, use, and store pharmaceutical products. We discussed the mounting medical accessibility issue for the millions of Americans with loss of hand dexterity due to arthritis, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, stroke, and a host of other disabling conditions. Whether prescription medications or over-the-counter bottles, the patented SnapSlide closure allows for one-handed opening and closing. Is this the future of medical packaging? And how can older adults advocate for themselves when it comes to accessible medical packaging? Just a little background on our guest. A native of Scranton, Pennsylvania, Rocky Batzel is the inventor of SnapSlide and currently serves as the company's chief executive officer. He earned a bachelor's degree in biology from Marywood University in Pennsylvania, and while enrolled in medical school, he noticed his grandmother struggling with a traditional push and twist child-resistant cap on her prescription bottle. That inspirational moment led him to pivot his career into the world of entrepreneurship, and he set out to design the very first prototype of what would eventually become SnapSlide. After securing patent protection, Rocky ultimately formed a company around his groundbreaking innovation. As the company's CEO, he's dedicated to advancing engineering, diversifying applications, and leading SnapSlide's mission to bring this adaptive solution to those who need it most. This year, Rocky was honored by Ameripen to be one of 3 panelists to speak at their annual summit in Washington, D.C. on the topic of inclusive design in packaging. Rocky, congratulations on your accomplishments. Welcome to our program today.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Happy to be here.
Great. Yeah, happy to have you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Me
I
too.
always like to open by asking our guests to, tell us maybe the highlights, what brought you to where you are today, maybe some of the, highlights, points that stand out for you.
The highlights and lowlights.
Yeah, well,
The journey.
we could do a little of that if you want, but let's start with highlights.
Yeah, all right. So, good bio. I was a medical student. I left medical school, did a year in med school, and my heart wasn't in it anymore. Felt driven into something else. So I left medical school into the abyss of unknown. Didn't know what I was gonna do, and just figuring out ideas, trying to like find my way. And my mom came to me one day and was like, Rock, you want to think of something? Think of something for these pill bottles.
Huh.
Graham can't get into them. I have to go over, open them up all the time for her, and then she leaves the cap on them. And then she knocks them over. The pills go all over the place, or she gets paranoid, and the grandkids come over, so she puts it on, and the whole process starts all over again. I thought that was interesting. So I started looking, and I realized that child-resistant closures haven't really evolved much in over half a century. Some iteration of a push and turn mechanism that obviously requires two hands, requires significant force and dexterity. And during medical school, I learned that less muscle movement is better, you know?
Sure.
So I was thinking, I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm like, all right, so there's 4 billion prescription bottles annually, about 10 billion over the counter packages. So I knew the scale was immense and price points are very low. So I knew this had to be simple. And I also knew one of the criteria is child resistance, which requires a two-part simultaneous open mechanism, like a push and turn or a squeeze and turn.
Sure.
So I knew it had to be simple. I knew it had to be two parts, and I knew it needed to require less dexterity for my gram. So I started thinking, and I'm a big research guy. I love my research. So I just bunkered down and just started researching bottles and closures. And I started to see that there's not just my grandmother, but 60 million Americans that have arthritis, and Parkinson's, neuromuscular conditions. And then you go into hemiparesis after a stroke. 80% of stroke patients have some form of hemiparesis on one side of the body, which is the inability to move one of your limbs, amputees. So I was wondering, okay, people with arthritis that have both their hands, they struggle, but how in the world could somebody with only one arm use it? So I was like, all right, how do we solve this problem that's been overlooked for half a century? And what I created was a very simple mechanical invention that still requires two parts to open it and just requires one hand. So I used a linear mechanism instead of torque. I removed torque from the equation and less muscle movement. Just take your thumb and worked around the perfect forces to allow you to easily open it and close it, which is interesting because closing, everybody talks about opening. Oh, opening's a pain. But a lot of the time, closing is equally as frustrating.
It can be just as tough, sure.
You have these threads you got to put it on and you got to engage it. It takes force. Not to mention you're juggling three different things: the cap, the bottle, and the pill. And a lot of people drop the cap. And as I was doing my research, I found all these different things people said. Like, I drop the cap all the time. I hate dropping the cap. I hate opening. I hate closing them. It's one of those overlooked things that, it's one of those things that, hey, been around forever and hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Something else comes along. Right. So it's been a road, patent protection, development, optimizing those forces for high scale production. And here I am.
Great story. Great journey there for you. So, you say over a half a century, there hasn't been any development in this traditional cap. What's going on? Why is that? Why haven't the manufacturers said, well, maybe we should improve this?
It's a great question. And I don't know the exact answer. So child-resistant caps came around in 1974 after the Poison Prevention Act. And needed a two-part mechanism. You got to go through the proper Consumer Product Safety Commission testing. There's an actual protocol. And I think after that, then they figured out, okay, the turn is the way to go. The production of these packages, they're huge injection mold machines that require pretty capital intensive, and they're just turning out units. And the packaging is a weird space because you're dealing with the businesses, the pharmacies, and you're not really interacting with the consumers at all. Your customer is the businesses.
Oh, okay.
So I think they've lost sight of that consumer, what consumers want, how to make life easier for the consumers. They're always addressing cost, how to get costs down, how to get better production capacity, on the current push and turns. And instead of looking at the consumer, how do we make it better and go outside the box a little bit? Instead of a torque, what's another mechanical operation that could make it easier? There's tens of millions of people that.
Yes. Yeah. You cited the millions of people that are just struggling for many different reasons, and that's an interesting explanation, though, that the manufacturers are selling the bottles to the pharmacies in bulk and by the cases, and the pharmacies distribute the bottles. So who does the consumer go to? Pharmacies should be going to the manufacturers. I don't know, but I can see that where they say it's not broken, why fix it?
Yep.
Well, it is broken, but nobody's fixing it until.
Like what Henry Ford said, if people ask me if I ask people what they wanted, they say a faster horse.
Yeah.
Like which torque, physiologically, it's there, torque requires a lot more effort, a lot more force during the opening process, all the way through the entire dispensing the pill. You're holding three different things, putting it back on, we could do better.
Yeah. So you said with this one, the traditional one, there's the twisting. You gotta, press that little lever down to clear the spacer, whatever it is, and that's the torque that is required. So how does yours? You talked about the linear action. How does yours work with just one hand? And I know it's hard without demonstrating it, but can you describe it for the listeners? Yeah.
So a little description. If you want to check it out, SnapSlide.com.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be sure to put that in our notes. Yeah.
But so a little audio description. It's tough to describe something. But so imagine a pill bottle, okay, with the cap on it. Now, instead of having to twist this thing off, you put your thumb or your index finger. I've seen some people that had really bad arthritis, that their hands are odd, that they use their knuckle. Everybody has a different SnapSlide approach on how to open it, but basically you press the tab, which is in the back, and you just press this and you slide it open. Just on a linear line, no turning. Just allowing that to be open with one hand. Now you don't have to use it with one hand. Some people find use it with two, you get a little bit more stability. So you don't have to use two hands. If you only had one arm to operate, if you were a amputee, you'd definitely be using it with one hand. Also, the cap doesn't remove. I incorporated the slider in which it's attached to the closure mechanism. So when you're doing it, you don't have to worry about dropping the cap.
Yeah, it stays connected to the bottle. Well, yeah.
And then closing, even simpler, just shut it closed.
Yeah.
And I wanted a snap sound, some auditory assurance, an auditory stimuli that, boom, you hear it, you know it's closed.
Yeah, it's sealed. So if it falls over, it's. Yeah, interesting. And you described some of the numbers. 40 billion bottles a year just for prescription meds, and then another 10 billion for over-the-counter bottles. That's a lot of bottles, and and a lot of users. You say 60 million with arthritis and Parkinson's and neuromuscular disorder, and 80% of stroke patients have some impaired psychomotor ability. So that's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
4 billion prescription bottles, over 10 billion OTCs.
Okay.
When we were breaking this down, we broke up our demographics into primary, secondary, and tertiary. Who does SnapSlide benefit the most? So the primary demographic are those that only have use of one arm, whether it's an amputee, hemiparesis after a stroke, neuromuscular conditions, brachial plexus injury, which is the main nerve going off your spinal cord to control your arm. You damage that, you're going to have limited movement. So if you don't have one arm, there's about 12 million people just in the U.S. alone. Even people that break their arm, they're in a cast. You're in a cast for 2 to 3 weeks. How you getting your meds? So 12 million people in that demographic. That's just in the U.S. alone. And then the secondary demographic are you have both hands, but you have limited dexterity or strength to use them. So arthritis being the big one there. Parkinson's, MS, other neuromuscular conditions. Over 60 million people in the U.S. alone. And the tertiary demographic is everybody else that takes meds that just they're able-bodied, they're able to do it, but they just want more convenience. They don't want to worry about dropping the cat. That's like my dad. He's funny. He's a surgeon, and he's always moving, right? He uses SnapSlides all the time, and he's like, Rock, and he's like, I was always able to open the push-in terms. They were a pain. I didn't like them, but I use this because it's just so much faster. I'm able to get my boom, pop them out. So I'm like, hey, Dad, if it works for you,
good.
Speed up your day. That's it.
Yeah, so he's got pretty good motor dexterity. We can be sure of that, right?
Yep, he's good.
Yeah. So I stand corrected on the bottles. The prescription bottles is 4 billion, and over the counter 10 billion. Are there differences between these two types of bottles? I mean, prescription versus over the counter?
Yeah, so a prescription bottle is what you go to the pharmacy, you pick up a prescription. It comes in that amber colored vial. The pharmacy fills it. That's the prescription vials. Over the counter, OTC, or over the counter drugs like Tylenol, aspirin, stuff you don't need a prescription for that you go pick it up on store shelves. So the pills are in it. It's filled at the pharmaceutical company and then delivered to the retail store. Put on shelves. So they need OTC bottles need a tamper evident and an induction seal in it because they need to be able to withstand shelf life. We're currently working on right now. We're in development of OTC, RX prescription bottles, first launch product.
Do the OTC bottles have child-proof caps, or they just have screw-off caps?
Yep, most of them have
child-proof,
child resistant.
Wow, okay.
Yes, child resistant.
Plus, they have the seal. They have to be sealed, so there's a longer shelf life.
Which is also a pain in the butt. You know that seal, you gotta like puncture through that thing or pry it off. I always hated those things. So we're trying to, when you invent something new, what's a curse is also a blessing afterwards because everything's custom, everything's a redesign. Figuring out there's no blueprint on it, but as you're going, you're able to find improvements, different stuff that you could do to make it better. So we have a cool thing to make that induction seal easier to come off too for the OTC world. But it's one of those things that makes it hard initially because you're like, there's no blueprint on it. Like I said, you have to figure it all out, and that's a lot of time, a lot of trial and error, a lot of resources to get it done. But as you find better adaptions, better things you could do to run versus status quo.
So you're working on a product that'll incorporate that seal plus the SnapSlide in one. I mean, you're right about those seals. They just don't come off. They use the best glue ever manufactured to seal them, so you can't lift it off. You always got to. You're right.
You can't do it, and then you gotta get a knife. You gotta puncture it. You know. Like aspirin. Aspirin. It's a great drug. One of the most widely used drugs. It's amazing. And cardiac aspirin. It's a great antiplatelet. Thins your blood. When you have angina, possibly taking a heart attack, what's the first aid 101? You pop an aspirin, right?
Sure.
How do you do it if your arm is debilitated? So just this one arm access, even in the most extreme conditions, it could come in handy. And like all packages should be adapted.
There's
solution out there, and it's cost effective.
And for people who are living alone, that's got to be more problematic because there is no one there to, hey, give me a boost, help me get this lid off or whatever. So
100%. It's
yeah,
one of
that just go
one of
ahead.
the things that I overlooked. I didn't appreciate it to a degree when I first started. Is I hear it a lot. Is this independence factor? Is that you don't want to count on your caregiver, your husband, your wife, your kids to open your to do anything for you.
Yeah.
Especially opening your medication packages,
Yeah.
And if I could come up with something that could make it a little bit easier for them to do that, then job well done. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because we do want to stay independent as long as we can and rely on ourselves and our own abilities, and to have to depend on another person just to take our medications. That's stressful. It creates some anxiety. It kind of creates this feeling of, gee, maybe I'm not doing so well. Maybe I'm not going to be able to stay, independent. So yeah, that's an important feature. I can see that. They don't want to have to depend on others for some simple activities of daily living. Yeah,
exactly. It's one of the most widely
yeah.
formed acts of everyday living. Opening up a bottle, and
Hmm.
90% of people do it on multiple times a day, whether it's your prescription or your vitamins. You're opening up a bottle,
Hmm.
maybe multiple times. And that's one
Yeah,
thing I notice is your independence. I don't have to
yeah,
worry about somebody else doing it. I could do it,
yeah,
and that,
yeah. Kind of like giving up the car keys. Who wants to give up the car
yeah,
keys, right? I mean, we want to stay self-reliant as long as we can.
yep.
So, where are you in the process? Are there some manufacturers that have adopted your technology, or where are you?
So we're currently working with the manufacturer now to ramp up production. We got demand coming in from pharmacies across the country, up in Canada as well. We launched our social media and our PR earlier, uh, early May. We launched. We finished everything we had to beginning of the year, and since we launched, we've been getting significant demand from pharmacies to wholesalers to
Mhm.
just regular consumers that want it. I've been sending SnapSlides out to consumers across the
Mhm.
country
Mhm.
now, blowing through samples like crazy because we have a one cavity mold right now that produces the samples. They're good for testing and samples and getting them out. But when it comes to production, we need multiple huge machines that produce 30 plus
Mhm.
parts per every 10 seconds,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to a one cavity mold, which produces one every 10 seconds.
Hmm.
Still the same part, but you just get so many
That's
more.
right.
We're talking about 4 billion or
Yeah.
tens of millions, whatever the scale is, you need that larger capacity. So
Uh,
and it's capital intensive. It takes a lot of time. It takes working within the industry, to form the alliances within the wholesalers, the pharmacies, the entire supply chain. So
mm.
it's a little more challenging than your traditional consumer product that you can just pop it on and sell it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's not an easy retail product. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're selling to pharmacies mostly.
And that's our model.
Yeah.
People to
Because if they adopt that model, then they can switch from the older system to this much more modern, much more beneficial system. And it really doesn't affect the pharmaceutical companies that are making the drugs, right? Or the aspirin. It doesn't affect them because they're just selling the actual pills to the pharmacies,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
The
Interesting.
pharmacy, they got to switch a bottle. They're using
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bottle anyway.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, cost anything to the consumers anymore. Snapside's not anymore expensive. In fact, interesting. We're able to removing torque. Remember, I was telling you when you're going down the development road,
Uh-huh.
things come things come into your radar that you never even thought of before or were trying to do. But removing torque, torque, they have
Yeah.
thread, right? And these threads have layers.
Yeah.
You got multiple layers of threads inside the cap and also on the bottom. So we're not using threads anymore. So we're able to get rid of all those,
Uh-huh.
that layer, which saved a tremendous amount of plastic. We're
Uh-huh.
able to slim down plastic about a gram per bottle by
Okay.
removing torque, getting rid
Yeah.
of threads, which a gram, yeah, what's a gram of plastic? That doesn't
No,
sound like
that's
a
it.
lot, but 4
It
billion,
adds up. We
it adds
know it
up.
adds up, right? With
Yep.
millions of bottles. Yeah. So that's the old screw. Archimedes, the Greek inventor, just created the screw. It's been so, invaluable for all of humanity ever since then.
Hmm.
And now we don't need that anymore with your top. Yeah. Saving the plastic. Yeah.
So it's an interesting little
And
perk
the,
that.
and the space too, I guess, on the bottle, right? I mean, if you don't have that quarter inch of threads anymore, you have that extra space. You don't even need that extension. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good, Joe.
Yeah.
Most people don't make that correlation. They're like,
Mm,
oh, it's plastic, good. They don't
mm.
think about the space savings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep,
Interesting. Yeah.
tremendous amount of space savings.
So when does the consumer start seeing these on the market?
I would like to have production revved up by Q1 of 2025.
In 25. Okay.
Yep. So that's our main objective right now. Get the production ramped up to fulfill the demand, and hope to get one of these large retail pharmacies
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
nationally.
Such a valuable product, and just I'm sure, seems like it's taken forever to use.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just turning that ship, that big cargo ship
Yeah.
in industry. Nobody wants to change. Everybody
No.
wants a big game about innovation and change, but when it comes down to it, they resist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a struggle to penetrate through, but you never give up. You have something good, and
No.
more support you get behind you, it's clear. It makes sense.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, it does. It takes that once you have a good product or good idea, good patent, it takes that tenacity, right? That perseverance and keep pushing because you're going to hit barriers, because people haven't done this before, and there may be a lot of reasons why they haven't done it before.
Yep.
You've got a solution, so got to prepare.
Yep. I'm no stranger to the barriers. I've been
Yeah.
since day one when I had the idea there was barriers.
Yeah.
This can't be done. You can never get a patent. It's too simple. It's out there.
Uh-huh.
It can never be molded. It's like,
Yeah, that's right.
it's different. People are scared of different.
Hmm.
It's,
Change. Sure.
it's they're not used to, and they jump right to the negative. No, it can't be done.
Yeah.
The closures are the way they are for a reason. Because there isn't an alternative.
Mhm.
Why not? I think it could be manufactured. I think it could be scaled. And sure enough, you take the beating and you keep on going.
Mhm. Yeah. You get knocked down, you get back up. I mean, I talk about that all the time when I talk about stepping out of our comfort zone where it's safe and predictable and familiar. And we step out of the comfort zone and there's all the unknowns and, a little anxiety, but also so much opportunity.
So much.
So many new doors that can be open when you get out of that routine.
And it is scary, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Getting out of that comfort zone. It's
Yeah.
a scary thing, but
Yeah.
you gotta take that plunge. You gotta.
Yeah.
gotta
Well, you find the manufacturers or the buyers that are going to see the value in this new product over the other one.
Yep. And that's why we started to go. Packaging industries don't go to the consumer like we were talking about before.
Mhm.
We took the approach, we're going to the back door,
Mhm.
through the industry.
Yeah.
We're one of the few that actually go into the consumers, trying to have a consumer facing to get the consumers aware
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
there's a problem and there's a solution here. So
Yeah.
we launched our Facebook, SnapSlide at Facebook, and the response has been overwhelming. We launched in early May and already up to pushing 10,000 followers.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 weeks or so. So it's resonating. It's such a simple, in a world of all tech and complexity,
Uh-huh.
just just the simple thing kind of resonates.
Yeah, the consumers get it, right? I mean, the consumers get it. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's who's who your followers are. These are the consumers that are saying, "Hey, I endorse that. I love that. I think that's a good." So, what would you say to the consumers on our call here, Rocky? If what could they do to advocate for SnapSlide? What would you ask them to do?
If you have Facebook, follow us on SnapSlide, Facebook. Go to our website, snapslide.com. Fill out the petition on the homepage. Join Team Snap.
Uh-huh.
Go to your pharmacies, whether it's the CVS or the
Uh-huh.
local drugstore on the corner, and ask for it.
Yeah.
Just start making some noise.
Ask for
If you're
SnapSlide.
sick,
Sure.
you're sick of the old prescription bottles, sick of that
Mm-hmm.
push and turn mechanism. That funny people I talk to, it's one of those things they're like, oh, I knew I hated it, but I never thought about it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't like those. I don't like them.
Yeah.
They are a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Interesting. Sure.
the more noise, the better.
Okay, that's good. I missed what you said on your website. You have something on your website that visitors can do?
And join the cause. It's just a quick, right on the home screen of the website. You
Okay.
see it, join the cause link, and it's just like 2 questions about,
Okay, sure.
and
Yeah.
they're kind of like a little petition.
Uh-huh.
We have almost 1,000 petitions signed already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're humming.
Okay.
The more the merrier. We need to build that
Of course.
awareness, build that noise, that demand. So these pharmacies, these big retail pharmacies, and start waking up to what the
Yeah.
consumers need.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I like that. So what would you like our listeners to take away from this conversation? You mentioned the advocacy already, but visiting Facebook, going to your website, filling out the quick survey. What would you like them to remember from our call?
Now,
There's solution
name-
coming. Yeah.
Solution come. The name SnapSlide.
Uh,
Follow us.
Yeah.
There's also you can comment on our website. If you want to drop me a message,
Hmm.
I'd love to talk and get anybody's experiences.
Okay.
They struggle with, what they think of current CR packaging. I love hearing what people have to say. You learn so much.
Yeah.
You can't sit in a bubble. You
Yeah.
know, you gotta just get out there and ask people, and you get some things that you never heard before. That wow, okay,
Mm-hmm.
just like to talk to people, like to understand them and learn based on their current situations and how we would improve and do it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. So
Team
visit the
Snap.
website. They can leave a message for you and leave comments, feedback, questions, suggestions, whatever. Yeah, that's good. So you're open. You're open to
I'm open.
any and all of it. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Well, looks like we're about out of time for today, Rocky. But before we wrap up, I just want to remind my listeners to visit my website, living200.club, sign up for my email list, and download a free copy of my 9 tips to make living longer enjoyable. And if you're affiliated with a senior living setting or organization, be sure to take a look at my new training manual and activity guide, Better, Longer, and Happier. That's at living200.club/BLH. Rocky, thanks so much for being a guest on our show today. Again, your website is snapslide.com.
Snapslide.com. Joe, I have a question for you. How many people you have in 100 in your club?
Oh, I don't get their ages, so
No?
no.
My grandmother, who inspired SnapSlide, just turned 97.
Oh, wow, good for him.
2
Yeah,
more years.
yeah. I think it's great, but I think the number gets in the way. I was reading about Cyndi Lauper, the singer, and somebody asked her age. She said, "I'm not a car. What difference does it make?"
Right. That's it.
Isn't that a great line? So
Just the number.
yeah, just a number.
You
Just a
still
number.
do everything you did when you were younger.
Yeah.
Have fun, enjoy it.
Yeah. Doesn't say anything about what we should or shouldn't be doing
Nope.
or whatever. It's just
The
whatever
world is
we're
still your
thinking.
oyster.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
on your mind.
All in
Still
your
get-
mind. You're
Do
exactly
you still get a
right.
letter? Do you still get a letter from the president?
What's that?
Do you still get a letter from the president when you
I
turn
don't
100?
know. I don't know. They used to, right? I don't know.
Remember,
We got a lot of people out there now. Yeah. Now we got the super centenarians that are over 110. I mean,
wow.
this guy, they just wrote his obituary. It'll take a minute. His name was Monty Makoff. And, he was did a lot of different jobs. And in his senior years, he started making sculptures out of metal. And he had his first gallery exhibit at age 100.
Get out of here.
How about that?
That's wild.
And he was the oldest. He was the oldest man in the U.S. up until he passed away I think, a few weeks ago at 111. So your first gallery exhibition at age 100. Can
You
you
keep
beat
the
that?
mind going.
Yeah,
Keep that mind going. He got into sculpting when he was 80.
keep going.
It's all
So
purpose. Keep
that
doing
fire,
something.
purpose, resilience. Yeah, whatever we want to call it. Yeah.
Yep. Where was that?
What?
Where was the?
Oh, I just read about it, his obituary. Let me see if I can bring his name up again. Maury Markoff,
Wow.
1914 to 2024. So
Something.
110. The oldest in the U.S. until he passed away. Yeah.
Incredible.
So I'm not a car, right?
Nope.
So
And he's probably still in good shape too.
well, that's amazing,
It is. It's incredible.
Well, great. Thanks so much for being on the program, and I look forward to seeing your products at our pharmacy.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you having me. Thanks to all your listeners as well.
Great. You're welcome.